In this video, I'm going to show you how to sew a outward facing corner into an inward facing corner and get this point looking nice and neat. Okay, so I've created a template here. Here are my two pieces of fabric that I'll be sewing together. The right side has the lines on it, and then the wrong side is plain. All right, now I have a very 90-degree angle here. This will work with any time you have any kind of outward facing corner that you have to sew into an inward facing corner. So you might have corners that are not quite this pronounced, and this method should still work for them. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is actually stay stitch this corner right here. And you don't have to stay stitch this whole thing. Just, here's the corner, so like an inch up and an inch away from that corner will work fine. The reason I like to stay stitch it is that we're actually going to clip down to that point, and it makes sure that clip that we make into it doesn't tear. There's a lot of times people don't clip this, don't stay stitch this corner, and that's fine. They're very good stitchers, but I myself, I like to stay stitch it. Okay. Now it's very important that we stay stitch exactly where the seam allowance is, or where the stitching line is going to be. What you can do is actually you can crease if you bring this edge to this edge, folding this corner in half, matching it up perfectly, and you put a crease right there. And you can hopefully you can see that shadow of the crease right there. That will let you know once you've started stay stitching whatever your seam allowance is, whatever seam allowance you have, in this case a ½ inch, right when you get to that point, okay, that's where the corner is going to be, and you know to turn this way. For demo purposes, I'm actually going to mark the stitching line just to make it easier for everybody to see. So I'll go ahead and mark it on there. So we're going to do our seam allowance is a ½ inch. So I'll just mark this stitching line at a ½ inch. Okay, so there's our point, and you can see there's our crease that's crossing right through it. Okay, so we want to stay stitch about this inch here and that inch there. Okay, so let's go to the sewing machine and do that. Alright, we're at the machine now. Again, we're going to stay stitch this corner right here because we need to clip in. So I'm just going to do it from about this notch through that corner and to about this notch. You can see the notches are marked here. Alright, so let's go ahead and do that. And the seam allowance is a ½ inch. Here we go. And when I get close to that point, I'm actually going to walk my needle because I want to make sure I get right to that point. You can look and see about right there. Let me just adjust it a little bit. There we go. Okay, I'm right in the point. My needle's down. Now when my needle's down, I'm going to lift up my foot like so, and I'm going to turn this pattern piece here, and then I can start stitching the other way. So I'll put my foot down and continue stitching. There we go, and that's enough. So now I can remove this, and I'll cut my threads. Okay, so now you can see I've stay stitched this corner, and I went right down perfectly to that point and then turned and came across. And this is what the back looks like as well. All right. So now what I want to do is I want to clip right through this corner, right to my stay stitching, but not through it. So let's go ahead and do that. Clip all the way down to that stay stitching, but not through it. Be careful not to cut through it. What that does is it allows this to now open up straight, okay, which we'll need to be able to do when we stitch this corner. Alright, so let's go ahead and take this piece right here, and we're going to stitch it in. Alright, so you'll notice that I have a notch here and a notch here. Those two notches will match up with these two notches. So this one matches with that one, and this one matches with that one. We're going to put right sides together, so I'm going to flip this over, and I'm going to line this up. And when you stitch this, you want to make sure you're stitching it with the part that you clipped on top. It will make it a lot easier if you can see this part that you're sewing. Okay, so I'm actually going to go ahead and stitch this side first. I'm flipping it over. Okay, so now again you can see when I'm putting right sides together and I'm lining up my 2 notches right here, remember that this side here is going to end up sewing into this right here. At the moment, this is facing the exact opposite way, and that's okay. All right, so let's go ahead and flip this over so we have the point that we clipped on top. Okay, there we go. And then if you want to make it a little easier, you might put a pin in right where that notch is, just to hold your fabric in place and make sure it doesn't ease or anything as you stitch it. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to stitch right down to that point. When we get to that point, we're going to put our needle down, lift up our foot, and we'll flip everything the opposite way, bringing this cut edge to the other cut edge, and then we'll sew down here. Okay, so you'll see that in just a minute. So let's go ahead and begin stitching this together. 1/2 inch seam allowance. This is permanent, so I'm going to lock it in and back tack at the beginning and end of this. Here we go. Move that pin. Now, as I get closer to this point, I'm going to stop using the pedal on my sewing machine, and I'm going to just turn the wheel to bring that needle down so I have more control. I want to get right into that corner again. And one more stitch. You may have to adjust it just a little bit. Right there. Okay, now my needle's down right at that corner, that point. With my needle down, I'm going to lift up the foot, and now I'm going to take, and you can see right under here, okay, here's that square piece. There's the edge that I want to match up with this edge right here. So what I need to do is pull those edges towards each other. So I'm going to take this square piece and pull it to my right, and then pull this side back to the left so that they meet, okay? And there we go. Now they're lined up. Okay, so again, what I did is I pulled this one back and this one forward. So bringing that forward, bringing this back, okay, and line up your notches. Now you want to make sure there's not a bunch of fabric bunched under here, so pull anything kind of out, make sure as flat as you can get it. And we'll make sure our edges are lined up. There we go. Now I can put my foot back down, and I'm actually just going to walk it for the first 2 stitches. There we go. And then I'm going to continue stitching. And I'll back tack at the end. There we go. Cut our threads. Okay, so there's the point sewn. We still need to press this so it gives a little bit of a sharper edge. Okay, but you can kind of see it right there. Alright, so let's go to the ironing board. Alright, so we're back and we're going to press this corner. Let's flip it to the wrong side. Alright, so now you can see on my seam allowances here, we can press this a couple different ways. We can press the seam allowances out. Okay, so all together in one direction. We could press them in all together in one direction. Or we can press them open, okay? So you want to think about what kind of effect you want when you press these. If you press them out, if you press all the seam allowances in one direction, okay, what that will do, it will make this piece look like it's inset. It will kind of bring this side up a little bit, so it looks like it's a little higher, and this side in the square here is a little lower. And that's an effect you might be looking for. I'm going to press them open so they're laying level with each other. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. Just going to press them open. And then this side as well. And you'll see here, I'll just tuck that corner under. Keep it nice and even. Okay. If you're using a bulky fabric and you press it open, you'll notice you have this extra seam allowance right here. It's kind of folded under. That can create a lot of bulk. So what you can do is just kind of cut that little square out right there. So I'll just carefully cut it out. Like so. There we go. Okay. You can also see right here, this is that edge that I clipped, okay? Now it's laying flat. Remember, before it was together and making an L, we basically flipped it right side out the other way, or inside out the other way, so now it's laying flat. Okay, so let's flip it over. Give this just a quick press right here. Alright, and now you can see we have our corner. So we've sewed this outward corner into this inward corner and created this point here. Okay, and again, this will work on any kind of quarter pretty much. It doesn't have to be, this is a 90-degree corner. Okay, so if this was more than 90 degrees or less than 90 degrees, you would still use this method to sew in that kind of point into a corner. Okay, all right, I hope this helps. Good luck.